Welcome to Becoming a Tech-Enabled Leader. I'm Dr. Camille Rutherford, and I'll be leading you through this workshop. One of the first questions I always ask is, who is a leader? Do you consider yourself to be a leader? Who are the leaders in your organization? I'd like you to think about that for a second as I show you a few images. Are these people leaders? What about these military officers? How about these corporate CEOs? Again, who is a leader? To help us answer this question, it's good to look at the definition of leadership. Leadership is a process of influence leading to the achievement of desired purpose. And here's another definition. By leadership, I mean influencing others' actions in achieving desirable ends. Leaders are people who shape the goals, motivation, and actions of others. I think it should be evident now that leadership is about influence. It's not about a specific role or title. It's about the people who shape the goals, motivations, and actions of others. So now that we have this understanding of leadership, I ask again, who is a leader? Now that we have an understanding of leadership, I'd like you to think about, how does technology affect leadership? Years ago, when we talked about technology, we often talked about hardware. But now when we talk about technology, we often talk about software or social media. The key thing about social media is that it was created to support active participation, connections, collaboration, and the sharing of knowledge and ideas amongst others. That has some very powerful implications for leadership. It's also important to note that social media and leadership can have a particularly important relationship to female leaders, as women are the top users of most social media resources. So now, when we think about technology and leadership, I hope now we start seeing it as tech-enabled leadership. Tech-enabled leadership can be defined as leadership that takes advantage of the affordance of technology to enable leadership actions that are open, collaborative, or dynamic. The key things to remember when it comes to tech-enabled leadership is actions that are open, collaborative, and dynamic. If you have a hard time remembering that, just remember OCD. You can guess why I've become obsessed with tech-enabled leadership. Let's take a look at open leadership. Open leadership are actions that open up leadership practices, are transparent for others to see and learn from. So social media resources like Blogger, Google+, Twitter, WordPress, and even Facebook can be great tools to support open leadership actions. Collaborative leadership. Collaborative leadership are leadership actions that include the participation of others. It assumes that leadership is not done in isolation. It also assumes that people can switch between being a leader and a follower depending on the different situation. But the key thing is that leaders and followers and leaders are collaborating together. Here are some resources that can really help to support collaborative leadership. Google Docs and Office 365 are great collaborative tools that a number of leaders can then use to put to work together to create documents or information that will influence the practice of others. Things like Wikispaces, Today's Meet, and Poll Everywhere are also great resources to get the input and insight of other people so more people can collaborate in that leadership action. Dynamic leadership. Dynamic leadership is not static. Again, it assumes that the leadership role can change depending on the situation. So leadership is not static, it's dynamic, it blends, it bends, it can also move and leap across space and time. So when leaders use things like Skype and Google Hangouts, it enables them to influence other people who aren't even in the same location as them. That's how dynamic leadership leaps beyond the boundaries of location. It also can be used to leap beyond the boundaries of time. Because as a leader, if you share information via YouTube videos or online, like iTunes U, anyone or any of your followers can go and look at that at any time. If you're uncertain about the impact of tech-enabled leadership, I'm going to share with you some key resources that can help measure that leadership impact. So the first thing is Twitter Analytics. Twitter Analytics captures all the impressions or views that your Twitter account may have within a particular time period. Blogs are a great way for open leadership, and here's a great way to capture that influence or that impact. Here's a listing of all the page views on a blog just for the last month. Again, when we look at traditional leadership, it's about being in the same place at the same time with your followers. But things like blogs can help you impact people or influence people across time. Another great resource is taking a look at the YouTube views. And as you can see, they can have significantly greater impact and allow you to impact and influence other people in significantly greater numbers than you can if you had to rely on face-to-face interactions. I hope it's now evident that tech-enabled leadership can be used to transform the scale and scope of traditional leadership. But my final question to you is, how will you use technology to transform your leadership?